up to this point in your life, what has your experience been with guns?
This is what I want to know because no one knows, but now they're gonna know. You're from New York, which is a completely like I'm talking like West Coast shit. Apparently, from what people tell me, New York is just as bad or
Oh,
worse.
of course.
So
I grew up in Queensbridge, so for those of you West Coasters, it's like Nas, Mobb Deep. Like,
right.
I grew up in the first projects that were ever built in New York. It's the hood. So I have your experience. Like, we would watch people in the next building have like 18 fucking DTs come out and pull out like
DTs are undercover
27
detectives.
fucking rifles and bags of cocaine and all these. So like, I come from that. I know I've had like all my friends in high school had guns and like, or were in gangs, or like, I come from that environment. But I've never been in a situation where I was like, a gun would have helped in that. But it could, there's a ton of reasons why I'm sure I wasn't in those situations. One, I'm a woman, which is iffy because I feel like that'd be an easy way to get me to give them what they want.
Right.
But I also feel like any altercation, any whatever, I can handle my own.
Right.
So I've never thought to like I've never been a weapon person. And we were talking about that earlier where like, we fight.
Right.
White people don't fight.
No.
If you're a white person and you fight, good for you. But like,
First
You're one of the
comment.
good ones.
Hey, first of all, I got hands.
but like, we fight. We don't argue. We don't do the whole I'm gonna come back tomorrow and handle it. Like,
Nah.
we're gonna fight.
It's gonna be on
It's
site.
gonna be squashed, and we're gonna be
Oh,
cool
let's see.
afterwards. You know
Right.
what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that's just generally how it goes.
Right.
So I just haven't had that experience with guns where I'm like, this is needed. This is what's going to make me feel safe. This is what I need to protect myself. Even in the instances of like cops, like especially in our climate now, you're not going to use a gun on a cop. You wouldn't even dare touch your gun if a cop was near you.
Nope.
So I think about that and I'm like, you're not going to use it with the cop. You know what I mean? And more than likely, most people, unless you're the fucking loner who has PTSD and was in the Marines, you're not going to use it. You know what I mean? It's going to be more of a for show thing,
Right.
of more of, I have this, you watch out.
Right.
Not necessarily, I need this to protect myself and I'm going to use it.
Right.
And that's my issue with that. Because I'm like, you're not really using it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's a, hey, I got an iPhone. Hey, I have a gun.
Yeah.
You know?
The
Sorry, I just want a follow-up question. What would be the instance where you're like, I'm gonna go get a gun in a preemptive sense of like nothing crazy has happened? You know, where like the reactive, I'm gonna get a gun, like something happened to me, so I'm gonna go get a gun now. In a situation where like nothing has happened to you yet, or at all.
As the like protection thing, I think it'd be like, we're in a home, I have a son, my husband's out of town. Might be safe to like have one in the house in a safe somewhere. And that might be peace of mind. Because even when I put myself in that situation, I'm like, am I really gonna fucking shoot somebody in this house knowing that my son's asleep? Like, you know what I mean? There's no, I can't picture it. I can't genuinely see myself picking up the gun and shooting somebody.
So the closest thing you could is be like, it would have to be to protect your son.
I think so.
It
I
would
think that like it got to that point for me where like I'm like, it's for my kid.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's gonna keep him alive in some way, sure. But I don't know. I just
That point too, just with kids and like having guns in the house where kids are. I think if you're gonna take the time to like do all that stuff to own a gun, you might as well take your kid along and
Oh, for
teach
sure.
them like the safe stuff and like this is
Right.
not a toy, all that stuff, and don't hide it from them just because it's easier to be like,
Right.
you'll learn when you're older.
yeah.
Teach them when you get it. When you get a gun, teach them however old they are. You know.
My grandpa showed me my first gun, which is now my gun or one of my guns, when I was 8. and it was a long barrel 45, and it was my dad. So it was like one of those like Western John Wayne looking ass guns where it was like that shit'll knock a whole your whole fucking back out if you got hit with it. And he showed me that, and I was scared to death. And this is like, and I was like, because he just walked out with it. And I was like, what the fuck?
Like, Grandpa, no, Grandpa, no, I'll be good.
And then he was like, I ain't gonna shoot you with it, boy. He was like, come here. And then he showed me it, and then it wasn't loaded, but he opened it, and he was like,
He says that, but he's taking on the bullet. That's
Yeah.
not loaded.
Heard your ass talking back in school. You gonna shoot me? Like,
He puts in one bullet, he's like, spins it. Let's go. You're a real man now, right?
but like he showed me about it, but then I distinctly remember after that I was terrified of him, and it wasn't even like the gun. I was just like, I can't believe he really just pulled, like he showed it or to me or whatever, like because I always knew he had it. I can't believe he just walked out with it like that, right?
Wait, before I forget, and we can talk about this later, but you were scared of the power he had.
Right.
Okay.
So I was like, whoa. All right. Now, to just jump on the whole thing that you said about like if a cop, like you would never use the gun on a cop. That is very true. But I would say, I think that's true for everyone just because I don't think those dudes are stupid. They would never put themselves in a position where you would be able to use it anyway, if that makes sense. So, like, there's no cop who's going to be like, except I've seen those weird videos where like cops want to fight like other dudes because they're like, oh, you got hands, nigga, let's see it or whatever,
Yeah, like
right?
they take off their belt.
Yeah, that's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like, especially with a weapon. Like, they gonna shoot me in the most safest way possible. Like, I understand that, right?
Yeah.
I was talking about in the whole like if shit was going down, fucking movie world,
Yeah.
or whatever. It was like, oh, we need these type shit, fucking. But also to go back on the whole thing about fighting, very true. None of us, and I feel like no one who grew up in the hood, their first choice is never a gun. It's never a gun, especially if it's some shit where they don't even have anything. It's never a gun, right? It was always growing up. It was either you fight, or if they had more people than you would bring niggas with you, or it was a simple fact you're gonna get jumped. That was pretty much it. There was no like, no man, I had never in my life thought about like.
You never plan to go like, oh, I'm gonna bring a gun into this.
Right,
This
like,
happens.
exactly.
It's
I've never
always like the first thought is like, I'm gonna have to fight.
Right, like, and then you start thinking about shit like that. I feel like that didn't start to happen until the whole aspect of course, fighting just died, and now no one wants to fight because no one wants to get embarrassed.
You know what? You just right there. You just reminded me of something we said in a previous podcast. The aggressor, the person that actually starts the fight, is looked at as a bad guy, right? Always a bad guy. No sympathy for them. But right now with this guy, he shot everybody, trying to put sympathy on him.
Right.
What the fuck is that?
But that's only because he's white.
No, but let's say in this situation they're both white. Like Khabib is technically white, right? The guy that jumped the fence to beat up the trainers. It's a UFC thing. Sorry, I don't know why I thought you
He
knew
gets
that.
bounced.
Khabib. But like, let's say they're both white. The person that the white person that actually beat up the other person that was talking shit about him is now looked at as a bad guy. Gets no sympathy. Is just like, oh, he shouldn't have done that. That's horrible. That's so unsportsmanlike. That's so blah blah blah. It's an unnecessary. But now this guy, same race, white, he shoots up the place, and now people are trying to put sympathy on his name. Like, I don't get that. Like, where the fuck? How is fighting worse than shooting up a place and killing a bunch of people?
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if they're fighting, they're both there afterwards, and I feel like the death portion of it adds that layer because, like, the shooter can't come back and say anything. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
where the person who started the fight could come back and be like, well, he did this, he said something, and I responded. This guy can't say anything. So I feel like I don't know, I feel like there is something to that where, like, well, he's dead. Like, the same way everybody was so hurt about Triple X dying, and nobody, when he was dying, when people would bring up the fact that he nearly killed his pregnant girlfriend, everybody was like, oh, let him rest in peace. That death portion of it has a lot to do with it, and I feel like it just becomes a thing where everybody innately, it's just like, no, like, he was fine, and he was growing up, and he had a chance to do better. he was he served the country and he was a loner and he danced in it. Like, there's something that you want to make that person human versus like a fight where they're just there. They can speak for themselves.
Do you think that goes back to just like primitive humans and how we used to be like in packs, and even the lowest person in the pack, like that no one liked, even like somehow he died, people would mourn from. So it's like a human thing of
I
like
think
shit, someone
so.
from our human pack died, even though he was a piece of shit and like did this horrible thing. It's like like just one
Yeah,
less
it's
of us.
like, right. I feel it's that same thing of like, I'm just gonna bring Triple X into it, but like it was like, oh, he did this shitty thing, but he didn't deserve to die. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, I
Right.
feel like that's what's in the back of everybody's mind. It's like, oh, he shot up the bar, but like it doesn't mean he should have been killed. Like, I feel like that's what people really feel, and they try to bring up all these good things to like remember him in a positive way and not as a terrorist, which he is.
So do you think it's not really sympathy for the person, it's sympathy for the situation, like the elements of how all this came to be,
And for the person.
and for the person?
I
Okay.
think so. I think like his family, like at the end of the day, his family lost him. He had a mom, and that mom lost her son.
Right.
So there's still that human aspect to it that people want to hang on to.